Welcome, my Phoenix family, to One-Footed Phoenix. When you go scrolling through social media, it can be really easy for you to get discouraged that you're one of those amputees that might not be wearing your prosthetic all the time. You might not be running marathons, you might not be doing all the cool and flashy sports. In fact, you might be even struggling to take a few steps in a prosthetic because there are times when they are not comfortable. There's many reasons that range from overuse syndrome to trying to just not have a leg on that feels like a really tight ski boot all the time. The reality is that even if you're a pretty active amputee, you're still going to have times where you're going to have to look out for skin breakdown and honestly look for blisters because you can break your skin, and breaking your skin, that can lead to infection. There's always going to be some oh my goodness. There's always going to be some sort of consequence to the body when you use your prosthetic, even if you are used to using it several hours a day. If you use it too much, you can end up with issues, which gaining blisters or having sores on your nubbin just because you used your prosthetic too much. On the other side of that, if you don't use your prosthetic enough, you can end up with issues with hip displacement or having to be really careful because you use a wheelchair most of the time that you're not in a prosthetic. Most people don't know that sitting in a wheelchair most of the time is not exactly how the human body was designed to work, so it can cause things like pressure sores, and you can also atrophy from not moving enough. The principle of energy budgeting comes into play when you realize that if you use your prosthetic more, you're also going to have issues with probably more pain, more soreness, and things that you're going to have to look out for. Sometimes it's just simply the better choice to use a wheelchair or a walker or crutches, depending on what your preference is and what you need to do during the day that you don't have your leg on. But remember that using a different mobility aid in the place of your prosthetic, that doesn't mean that you're a failure at all. It just means that sometimes you're going to need to rest that leg. And mobility aids don't have to be seen as something that holds you back, but rather as something that gives you your freedom to do what you want to do or what matters most in life. And for me, there are several different mobility aids that I may use depending on the situation. Like if I want to go hike up to the overlook on vacation, I'm probably going to use my prosthetic for that short interval. But for the rest of the trip, I may also be in my wheelchair. That's an example of how having the right mobility aid for the situation makes a big difference. You do not owe anybody an explanation for why you are not wearing your prosthetic. You want me to say that again? Because I will. You don't owe anybody an explanation for why you're not wearing your prosthetic. I get it. People are annoying. They ask questions because they don't understand or they don't get it. And frankly, it's their responses to the question that I find the most rude and annoying, but you know, people gonna ask what people gonna ask sometimes. Oh, and if you want more proof that it can be annoying, sometimes people assume that I can do everything when I'm wearing my leg, but they assume I can do nothing when I'm on wheels, where the reality is a good mix between the two. But the cold hard truth is that people are going to stare at you no matter what mobility aid you choose to have showing, so you might as well just look cute in the process. And that advice comes from my own mom when I went to a mission reunion to see other people that I had served with. And she's like, well, you're gonna turn heads either way because you're coming in with a wheelchair, so you might as well just look nice. And guess what? I did turn heads when I came into that church building. And it was not exactly because I was in a wheelchair. For some, yes, that was the reason of like, whoa, she's in a wheelchair, what happened? But for some, it was also, hey, I just look nice. So I put on a smile and my happy little self that I typically am and went right in and enjoyed it. And sometimes when people stare at you, it's just simply because you look different and they're not sure what to say. But if you get nervous to be out in a public space without your prosthetic, you're not alone. You're not the only one that's been like that. For a long time, I didn't really want to show the fact that I wasn't wearing my prosthetic, and it would bother me because I would get a lot more stares. And then I started having a little bit of fun with it, saying, okay, well, if I have to go out in public without my prosthetic on, I might as well go wearing a shark or an alligator or whatever else I can find. So while you might not be stuck to just a wheelchair if you're not using your prosthetic, there are advantages to knowing that not all amputees will wear their prosthetic every single day, and frankly, it's kind of unhealthy to be wearing your prosthetic every single day and not give your leg a rest sometimes. All right, if this helped you and you want to learn more, click over here to see the next video all about what to do when people keep trying to help you or don't ask before helping you. Click over here, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.